is a dark business.
5-man job, busting in and busting out of a diamond wholesalers.
This heist
Give me those.
Hey, Joe, want me to shoot this guy?
You shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
is much more colorful.
Here are your names. Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink.
Why am I Mr. Pink?
I pick. Be thankful you're not Mr. Yellow.
But you can't get the green
What happens if the manager won't give you the diamonds?
Cut off one of his fingers, the little one. After that, I'll tell you if he wears ladies' underwear.
without a little red.
I'm shot in the belly.
The line between crook and cop
We were set up. Cops were there waiting for us.
is a very gray area.
As soon as I heard the alarm, I saw the
No,
cops.
man, I'm telling you, the cops didn't show up until after Mr. Blunt started shooting everybody.
Harvey Keitel,
That kid in there is dying from a bullet I saw him take. So don't you be calling him a rat.
Michael Madsen,
They hadn't have done what I told them not to do. They'd still be alive.
Tim Roth,
I'm dying here! I'm dying!
Steve Buscemi,
You're acting like a first-year thief. I'm acting like a professional. They get you, they get closer to me, and that can't happen.
Reservoir Dogs.
Let's go to work.
Look for it on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital download.
And welcome back to the Movie Hero Network. This is Wheel of Movies, episode number 42. We are talking about Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs this evening. As always, I am Austin Pez Howell, joined by Richie Goodacre. Richie, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, going good. Yeah, and this will be a good time. This is, this is always good to dive into Quentin Tarantino, and yeah, as we'll get into, this is my only blind spot of Quentin Tarantino, and yeah, only just got done with it so, before we went to it. Went to record it here, so yeah, so no, it's really fun to talk about it. It's fresh in my mind, so yeah. No.
Literally like fresh from like 2 minutes ago. Excellent. That's right. Well, yeah, no, we were talking about, it's Reservoir Dogs from 1992. I'm a big Tarantino fan, so I'm always happy to talk some Tarantino. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Richie, if this was your only blind spot of Tarantino or if you had other ones. But I guess you just already answered that. All right, well, there you go. Well, we'll talk about that because, it'd be interesting to hear a first-timer perspective. I've seen this movie probably a dozen times or so, but it'd be interesting, get a fresh perspective on it, see if it still holds up. As always, just gonna spit some facts up front, and then we'll kind of get into the movie. October 9th, 1992, when it debuted in the United States. Very low budget movie, only a budget of $1.2 million at the time. Very, very low budget. Box office of just about $3 million, so not a huge release, but this movie had a lot of buzz coming out of the Cannes Film Festival that year, and Miramax ended up picking it up. It was a critical darling, though, and has since obviously grown in reputation and has made some extra money in re-releases over the years because it is. But it found an audience on home video, through all the video stores, on cable and whatnot. So it has found its audience, obviously. Empire Magazine, the British magazine, a few years back named Reservoir Dogs the greatest independent film of all time, number one, as far as a purely independent film. Obviously, with a $1.2 million budget, you wouldn't think it by the cast that's in this movie, but at the time, we'll talk about it. Harvey Keitel was really kind of the only known guy in this movie at the time in 1992. Everybody else is kind of discoveries, for what it is. But it's a hell of a cast when you go back and look at it.
Yeah, no, it's like it's pretty stacked actually. Yeah, it's who would go on to be a lot would go on to be Quentin mainstays. So
Sure.
It's cool how that happens with like how independent cinema can do that can be the launching point for like discovering new stars, especially obviously like probably the most recognizable guy other than like Harvey Keitel is like Steve Buscemi, but it's his first sort of Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys were like working actors, working through television, very other very small movies.
yeah.
But yeah, this was a launching pad for Steve Buscemi, for Michael Madsen, for Tim Roth. Yeah, these guys having big standout parts. Yeah, and obviously a big launching pad for Tarantino as a writer and director. Who would go on to make arguably his masterpiece 2 years later with Pulp Fiction. So yeah, but he got off to a good start here. Keitel was very instrumental in getting this movie made. He got a hold of the script through one mean or another, really just through his wife. Was actually sorting through scripts and whatnot. I think it was like an acting coach or something got a hold of it. She got a hold of it. She showed it to Keitel, and he loved it. He wanted to be a part of it. He knew he was really instrumental in getting funding for the movie, for even just the minuscule funding that this movie had, and essentially getting producers kind of to back it. Because again, he was the only real star of the movie at the time. One had been established for a long time, but he really worked side by side with Tarantino to kind of get the ball rolling on this project. So that he was instrumental in that.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he almost owes his career to Harvey Keitel in a way.
No, and that's why he then obviously put him in The Wolf, and in Pulp Fiction, and we continue to work with him off and on. So yeah, they remained good buddies after that. And yeah, Harvey Keitel said this is one of his favorite roles as well. As Mr. White. So yeah, rightfully so. Yeah, the warehouse that's mainly takes place in most of the movie. This is almost a one location movie. I mean, we do get some other locations throughout the thing, but the crux of the movie kind of all takes place in this one sort of warehousey location. It was an unused mortuary, actually. So yeah, it's just a mortuary that was just not in use, that they kind of rented out, and even they put it to good use even in other parts of it, because upstairs they redressed one of the rooms upstairs to be Tim Roth's little apartment that you see him like practicing his so they just redressed that room, and one or two other scenes where they just redressed some stuff within that mortuary. So yeah, but a good chunk of the movie takes place in that kind of lower part of it. It's a good little location.
Well, yeah, it makes it realistic when you have like an actual kind of CD plays for your CD activity.
Yes.
Sort of like I did that. I did a short that short sketch film thing. Like what was it, like last year, the year before, where I have it where I'm like we're on like this like mad sort of scientist who's whooping this guy, and that's a comedy sketch. But like what we filmed it was like out in the middle of nowhere. It's very much like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type type crap shit. It's just like with a whole bunch of it's just like it's very eerie. So yeah, sometimes you just kind of hit the jackpot with what locations you can get. You're like, yeah, this needs to be a set for something. We need to use this. So yeah, that checks out.
No, yeah, and the set definitely becomes almost like a key part of the movie, because everybody's kind of coming in and out of this, the set and kind of running in and out, and obviously it's where again a lot of the key sort of plot points happen. But yeah, apparently Lawrence Tierney, the gruff, bald guy Joe, the guy kind of running the operation, was a pain in the ass on the set. Nobody liked him. He's just a stubborn fuck. Tarantino got very frustrated with him many times. Even Keitel got frustrated with him at times. Just said, he did his job eventually, but he was just being a real pain in the ass, and nobody liked him. So
probably why he was like the out of the cast, he was the least well known in my eyes. I was like, and this guy.
Yeah, he's got a good presence and a good voice and stuff, but yeah, he's not one of the super key parts of the movie. I mean, he eventually becomes one, but yeah. Michael Madsen's infamous ear scene, several things about that. So the movie, every time it was screened, inevitably had walkouts. Anytime Tarantino was screened this movie, some people walked out. They were disgusted by the violence or threw up or whatever it was. Even some seasoned, horror people that saw the movie, thought it was pretty, fairly realistic. Even though you mentioned Texas Chainsaw, Richie, it's very similar to Texas Chainsaw in that, if you remember that original one, the scene where Leatherface hangs the girl up on the hook, right? And you think your brain tells you that you see, it going into her when actually you don't see anything at all. It kind of strategically cuts around it, and you just kind of see the aftermath. Very similar to here, he goes in with the razor and then we sort of cut away a little bit and you just hear the screams and whatnot, and then you just see the aftermath. You know what I mean? So
you just need the 70
yeah. You don't actually see him like holding an ear and like slicing it up. Like you just kind of see the aftermath of everything. But people were still kind of repulsed by it at the time. And really, when you go back and watch it, it's pretty tame for what it is. I've seen way worse stuff. And
I guess people, maybe in this day and age, maybe I don't know if people have like the stronger stomachs and we kind of kind of I don't know. There's more extreme, there's more extreme tolerance, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. I always hear like these stories of like, I was at the premiere, people were walking out, people were throwing up. But then when around the movies or whatever, I don't, and I'm seeing a particularly disturbing film or whatever, or whether the scores or hostels or whatever. I never see these reactions. Like where
I never do either. It's like the same reactions you see. We always call BS on like those stupid marketing trailers. Remember when they're showing a horror movie and they always have the shots of the audience just like, or laughing, like the over the top, like paid reaction. Like I never see audiences reacting like that. Where are these audiences that I mysteriously I'm never a part of whenever I go to the movies? I don't know.
Yeah, good.
But the budget was low, Richie. That's kind of one of the reasons we don't actually see the heist. We'll get into it. But why you don't actually see the full-on heist, it's just it would have been too expensive and too big of a set piece to film. So that's why we kind of get, and it's part of the plot, and I think it actually works for the movie that we don't actually see it. We just kind of get, people sort of recapping it, and you get bits and pieces of it, and some of the aftermath again. We'll talk about it, but one of the reasons why you don't actually see it is because of the budget. And then there's Easter eggs all throughout the movie, as with most Tarantino films. Michael Madsen's character is named Vic Vega. If Vega sounds familiar, that's John Travolta's character in Pulp Fiction. And there was originally supposed to be a Vega Brothers movie. Tarantino had a Vega Brothers script where it was going to be Travolta and Michael Madsen after Pulp Fiction, that he was going to make a Vega Brothers movie, and then kind of even some kind of prequel or something, with them two running around, causing havoc, but it just never came to be. So he has actually, the character is related to the John Travolta character in Pulp Fiction. That is canon. And then there's another Easter egg where they mention, if you remember Harvey Keitel, they talk about Alabama.
Yeah, they mention her.
Yeah, they mentioned Alabama, the character from True Romance, Patricia Arquette's character. So they talk about her, and that's the same Alabama as in True Romance, which is also a Tarantino.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say that they also mentioned Pam Grier, which is interesting. But,
that she would go on to be a Jackie Brown. Yeah, no, 100%. So there's little things like that throughout the movie. Not a whole lot after that. I've got a few notes. I mean, there's always notes about like people who auditioned and whatnot. A few worthy notes. I think George Clooney auditioned for something in the movie. Brad Pitt auditioned. A lot of the usual suspects around the time. People who weren't that big yet, auditioned for this project, but they didn't end up coming around.
I feel like George Clooney and Brad Pitt are almost too pretty. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit. You need somebody a little more gruff. Yeah, everybody in this movie feels a little rough around the edges. Yeah, and you kind of need that for all the roles. Yeah, somebody that's not like a supermodel. But as I do, with a lot of these movies way back when, would you like to know what was tooling around the multiplex in October of '92? And see what was going on. Well, the big movie of the month was Under Siege, the Steven Seagal film. Lots of people going to see that.
Arguably his only good film.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, definitely his best film, 100% by a long shot. But Under Siege was doing very well. Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis doing quite well, and it was kind of a big Oscar movie around that time as well. The Mighty Ducks kicking ass at the box office. Nice family film, or as you would call it, Champions. At your multiplex, and then a whole lot of random stuff. If you noteworthy things, not anything super huge. Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck, making some money. Candyman, rest in peace, Tony Todd, in theaters in October of '92, so that makes sense. You can go see Candyman in the theater. Captain Ron with Kurt Russell, in there, which I haven't seen in a long time. I have it on my Vudu, but
you're getting up to 92 soon for the tournament fight, so you're probably
I might rewatch that one. Yeah, it's been a minute, so I have it on my Vudu. I'm probably going to rewatch that. Glenn Ross, which we just talked about briefly over on that Long Time First Time.
Also, James Foley just passed away. So
James Foley, rest in peace. Yeah, the director of Glenn Ross, among other things. Unfortunately, his last two movies were the last two 50 Shades movies. Not the greatest note to end on, but yeah, he did do Glenn Ross, so he's got a piece of history. And the movie Sneakers, with I believe Robert Redford. So just a few things kind of tooling around. Again, nothing super groundbreaking or anything like that, but a couple of choices. Let's get into it. Richie, I'll go to you first. Obviously, you said this is a first-time watch for you, but what's your history with kind of Tarantino in general, and maybe why it took you so long to kind of get around to Reservoir Dogs?
I don't really have a reason why, solid reason why it took it so long. Because I don't know, my first sort of Tarantino is probably something like Kill Bill, or even later than that. I can't remember. It might have been
Glorious Bastards or something.
Might have been Glorious Bastards or something like that. Or and then I sort of went back, because even Pulp Fiction, I watched once when cinemas sort of did a small reopening, and then 2020 they did a screening. I'm like, oh, this is a great it was a great time to watch it on the big screen. So I watched Pulp Fiction there. I was sort of I don't know, maybe because it was this thing where Quentin Tarantino's sort of his filmography is so so highly regarded that I didn't want to it's got so high expectations that I was worried that it would it meet those expectations. So it took me a while to sort of get to him, but after a while, I'm just I don't know why. I was kicking myself. I'm like, I should have been watching these for a while. Because they immediately made an impact on my 128 or whatever. So I was like, these movies hold up. They're great. I think when you're worst movie, in my opinion, is Death Proof, which is still a good movie.
It's still watchable, and even I'm not a huge fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it's still watchable. You know what I mean? It's still got good characters, good performances. Just I just don't vibe with it as much as some other people do. Just the story and whatnot. But even the worst Tarantino is better than a lot of other movies. So, but when he's great, he's great. And as with a lot of his movies, I got into Tarantino again in my kind of blockbuster days in the early 2000s. I know I rented Pulp Fiction, and then I bought it right afterwards on DVD. There was a double DVD I purchased, and then I just I kind of started blind buying any of the stuff that was already out. So I blind bought Reservoir Dogs. I blind bought a DVD of Jackie Brown. And then luckily this is around this time, then Kill Bill came out in theater. So Kill Bill was my first theatrical experience with Tarantino. So 1 and 2, and I was just old enough to go see it because it was 2003 for Kill Bill Volume 1. So I was just 17. So I was just old enough here in the United States to go watching a rated R movie, getting carded, but I was there, and Kill Bill Volume 2. And then I've seen all of his movies, in the theater since then. He's obviously one of my favorite directors. So, this is one that I think, not that people sleep on it, but I think Pulp Fiction is just so big, that it's almost it doesn't really get overlooked per se, but I think, it's not quite on the grand scale that kind of Pulp Fiction is, just, cinema wise, or even something like a Kill Bill or an Inglourious Bastards. But I think all the key elements you get with a Tarantino movie are here. You have great characters, again, excellent dialogue with a mix of kind of that casual dialogue, but also that intense, back and forth, dialogue and whatnot. You get the out of order kind of, storytelling of a Pulp Fiction, where you're piecing everything together and it kind of, all culminates at the end. And then you get to a good soundtrack, all that kind of stuff. So I think all the pieces are here, Richie, that you would kind of then perfect in Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And and yeah, you get while you get like a like a solid cast, you get and like I feel like it's peppered throughout his filmography. While you get a solid cast, you get like actors who are either on the coming up or actors you haven't seen, audiences probably haven't seen in a while that are sort of getting an opportunity. So that's sort of been in the Quentin Tarantino's thing, for a while. So yeah, there is sort of there's still hallmarks there. I just think like you said, I think Pulp Fiction is so big that like it's almost like that's his first film. But that's like no, this is this is still like like I don't people don't almost like a pun, but don't sleep on Reservoir Dogs. It's great. So
yeah. Well, let's get into it. Yeah, because we open up, again, like a lot of Tarantino movies, with just kind of a dialogue scene, introducing the characters, much like how Pulp Fiction opens up with Tim Roth, Honey Bunny and Pumpkin. Yeah, just at a diner, just talking about, why people rob banks, or why they should rob, restaurant, things like that. We're just kind of thrown into a conversation, with these guys. We're thrown in the first voice I believe we hear is Quentin Tarantino in this movie, because of course, he, much like Kevin Smith in Clerks. Have you heard the story about how Kevin Smith, when he wrote Clerks, he wanted to play the Randall part, because he had all the best lines, and he wanted to do that. It's kind of the same thing. He wanted to play Mr. Pink, the Steve Buscemi part, because he kind of had a lot of the best lines in the movie. And then when Steve Buscemi auditioned, Tarantino said, "I got this role unless you give a killer audition," and Steve Buscemi gave a killer audition and got the role. So he stepped back and became one of the kind of ancillary characters, and rightfully so. I don't think it would work as well if you had Tarantino in the Buscemi part.
I think he was good at just being a bit part.
No, he does this kind of opening monologue. You see him once or twice kind of again throughout the movie, but Buscemi is one of the anchors of this movie, and he's going back and forth with Keitel, and he's in a lot of the warehouse stuff, and he's got that kind of like Weasley thing going on, but he's also like, he's got that like he's on, Adderall or something like that. He's talking 100 miles an hour, and he's freaking out all the time. He's got the energy that I really love about Buscemi, especially in this movie.
No, I think it was great casting, actually. I kind of wish he would do more like kind of. I know it's like not fully serious, but serious stuff. He's sort of like being kind of pigeonholed as just like almost a Sandler guy now. So, But yeah,
well, I mean, he did have Boardwalk Empire for a long time, for what 5 or 6 seasons or something like that, and he was Emmy nominated, or he won an Emmy, I can't remember, but he at least he was the lead of a fairly dramatic series, so I think he's he's had his moments obviously throughout the years, but I agree. I think he's kind of been seen in the last, or known to a lot of people as like, one of these like Sandler guys, and kind of a comedic dude, and funny. Don't get me wrong, he's very funny, in a lot of his comedic roles. But you go back and watch something like this, you're like, God damn, like this guy can carry a movie. He's great. And he's fantastic. Because we open up with Tarantino giving this monologue about Madonna's Like a Virgin and what he thinks it really means. And a fun fact about that is, after the movie was released, Madonna a year or two later saw the movie and then sent him a card in the mail that she signed saying, "Dear Quentin, I love the movie. The song's about love, not about dick, Madonna." So, but still she took it in, all in good fun, and said she liked the movie, but you're incorrect in your assumptions. So, but then we get this back and forth debate, and it's funny that we're doing this week, because I won't spoil anything, because I don't think it's out, but myself and JPO had a battleground debate, and one of the questions was, what's the best debate scene in a movie? And he picked A Few Good Men, and I picked the tipping scene from Reservoir Dogs. So funny enough that we're talking about Reservoir Dogs, because we get this debate about tipping. That Steve Buscemi, they're coughing up money for the tip for the waitress, and it goes this whole thing about how he doesn't tip, and he's he doesn't believe in it, and it's messed up that waitresses have to rely on it or whatever, but society deems one thing tip worthy and another, and it goes in this back and forth with Keitel chiming in and Madsen chiming in this big back and forth. But I wanted to get your perspective on this, Richie, because here in America, tipping culture is like out of control right now. It's like they want you to tip for fucking everything, like tip for self-checkout, tip for coffee shops, tip for, this, that, and the other. But I know the rest of the world pretty much, and I don't know, maybe you can light me on how it is in Australia. Is there a tipping culture in Australia? Is there such a thing? Or are you guys like just all about wages and,
Yeah, man, I don't think we don't like tip at all, really. There's might be certain things where situations where it's like, oh, if you can, I think it's just all about wages and stuff. Even though there's still there's still I wouldn't say the wages across the board are fair, are great or anything, but there's no real, there hasn't been any real tipping culture necessarily. If you if I'm getting ordering Uber Eats or something like that, there's that you can you have the option to tip or whatever, or but that's pretty much the extent of the tipping, and I don't feel like many people do. But I know from being in America, when I visited America, it was even back then in 2006, it was I was sort of caught off guard with how much stuff. This is for that I was I think I remember the guy took our bags up to the motel, and he was awkward. He was just standing there, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right. No, it's that. It's waitresses. It's taxis or whatever. Yeah, it's everywhere now, and even pretty much everywhere you go where you order something on a tablet, there's options to tip, and I'm like, I in that way I'm kind of with Buscemi, and then I'm just like, where am I supposed to tip for you just doing your job, and just making me a sandwich, you're not serving me like a waitress in a restaurant, am I supposed to throw you a bunch of extra money? I don't get tipped at my supermarket I work at for filling shelves, you know what I mean? I don't have a tip jar on my my float for keeping the shelves full. So I find it interesting that if you're outside of the United States, you might see Buscemi in that scene as the voice of reason, and then if you're in America, you might side with Keitel in that argument. And I just find it fascinating, that everybody has their own perspective.
I did find it interesting. Yeah, it was just that argument, because I could probably had I because I'm sure there's people who've maybe spent time living in America and maybe elsewhere who could probably see both sides. But as someone who doesn't live in a tipping culture, I'm just sort of definitely more on the Buscemi side. But I can. But it is interesting, the dynamic.
No, I see this. I even see the scene quoted in Reddit threads to this day. You know what I mean? People just I'm with this, but anyways, but again, the unstructured kind of order of this thing and jumping around. I mean, it pretty much cuts from that after we see them leave, in the kind of opening to Tim Roth is bleeding in the back of a car, and Keitel's driving. He's bleeding all over the place. He's bleeding like a stuck pig, and something has obviously gone wrong, and we get this first indication. We know they were going to do a job, or something, but we don't know a whole lot of details. And again, it's this idea of we're getting the pieces out of order, and we're kind of putting together what happened. We get some reveals. We don't see the actual heist per se, but we see some of the events after the heist, the post heist later, we see how Tim Roth eventually got shot. We see, why they're driving the particular car they're driving, who's got the diamonds, all that kind of stuff. But was this a little jarring for Richard? It's oh, we're just having this conversation and we're eating breakfast, and all of a sudden, I'm dying, I'm dying.
It took me a bit, but then obviously, I'm sort of used to Quentin Tarantino's non-linear type storytelling, and I was like, okay, now I get you. It did also remind me of it was because you must chaos scenes in the back of cars, because it reminded me of Pulp Fiction, where they're in the car and he accidentally shoots a dude in the face.
Yeah, right.
So it's a lot of chaos in the back of cars. The car scenes. So, Yeah, no, but yeah, no. So, I mean, it definitely gets your attention. Like, oh shit!
Oh my god,
What
yeah.
happened?
These two guys are covered in blood, and we're driving away, and something's gone wrong.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it must unnerve you when you're you're bleeding like a soft pig. Probably you're convinced you're about to die, and they're like, "No, we can't go to the hospital." What the fuck?
they can't go to the hospital. You got to wait in this warehouse so we can get you a doctor. Yeah. Well, I mean, we find out later why we can't go to a hospital. We get that information a little later. But yeah, all these guys are calling each other. Mr. White. Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink. Again, it's all these like aliases so that we're not giving away too much information to each other on this team. But yeah, we get to this kind of warehouse, and again, this becomes kind of the central location of the movie. We do we cut away to different things here and there, but this is kind of a very central location where everybody's going to kind of come together throughout the movie. He's trying to take care of Roth. Buscemi busts in. He's the next one to kind of bust in. At this rendezvous, and yeah, he's freaking out. Obviously, very so. He got away from the cops somehow. We start to get information about how things went wrong. Mr. Blonde started shooting people or whatever. The cops were there immediately. Buscemi immediately thinks there's a rat. Somebody ratted him out. But yeah, I know it's a lot of information to take in, Richie, but yeah, Buscemi's kind of going a little crazy. But when he starts introducing this concept of the rat, did it kind of get you thinking about who it could be, or there's kind of a mystery element to the movie now as far as like who ratted him out?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely kind of upped the stakes, and like it made me turn into I mean, I like a good old mystery, so it kind of definitely it got my attention even more than it had. So I was like, all right, cool. And you sort of I mean, I don't know, maybe that's profiling. I initially thought it meant, I was like, oh well, he he looks like he generally looks like a rat. Maybe it's Steve Buscemi. Maybe it's Steve.
Right. So like you think he's like projecting like, oh, somebody else is the rat. I'm not the rat. Somebody else is the rat. But even if he is, no, I can see because I mean, you can see that argument again. He's kind of weaselly. You don't really try. He's already shown himself to be kind of a scummy dude because he doesn't tip. Here in America, so maybe you think he's like not quite on the up and up and whatnot.
Especially, we'll get to it. What he does to the
yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, they kind of calm down a little bit. Again, they sort of you start to get the pieces of like from everybody's perspective. So somebody talks about what he saw, how like Blonde started shooting up the place, and all of a sudden the cops were right there. Or excuse me, Buscemi says that like once he started shooting, then the cops were just right there. But it was like 17 out of nowhere. They were there before the alarm. Could really get going. And they're kind of speculating on this, that, and the other. Who can we trust? Do we call Joe, the Lawrence Terry character? He wants to take Tim Roth to a hospital. We can't do that because Keitel told him his real name. He told him his name is like Larry, from so and so, and that's going to create a problem if the cops get a hold of him, and whatnot.
I like that. Everything's not as simple as it seems. And the whole intrigue. I know. I dig it.
Just drop me off on the sidewalk, man. I'll be all right. It's just like, oh, just drive by the hospital and drop me out. And Buscemi's initially with it until he finds out that he knows his name because, he just thinks they'll sweat him out. But again, there's a whole tension where Buscemi's saying, like, the other guys could be with the cops right now, ratting us out or ratting this location out at least. The cops could be here any minute. So it's almost like a ticking clock, without there being like a literal clock, Richie, about like, that the cops could swarm in on the location. At any minute that there's this additional mystery of like what happened to everybody else, what happened to Tarantino, what happened to Michael Madsen's character, what happened to everybody, that's not there. What happened to Chris Penn? All these guys that you don't quite know where they are. But just as they're about to kind of leave, we get Michael Madsen kind of comes in. We've seen him a little bit at the beginning, but this is where we kind of start getting into him. We've heard he was the guy who started shooting the civilians in the jewelry place. He went crazy, started shooting everybody that they're saying he's a psychopath. Michael Madsen in this movie is like he's a psycho, like his character is a psycho, but I'll be damned if he isn't like the coolest cool, calm, collected psycho you ever seen in your life. Like the most suave dude. Yeah, he got a reputation out of this movie.
He's the most. As the kids would say, he's got a lot of riz. He is.
Yeah.
He's just a very charismatic psycho. That like I could, I could definitely. I don't know, like he could easily manipulate people. I reckon. Just he's got charm about him. He's got that. Yeah. I love Michael Manson. I think he was probably one of the best performances in the movie.
No, he's really, really great. Yeah, the way he just kind of is just like they pan up and he's just already like, just leaning up against that car or whatever, he's just all of a sudden kind of there, out of like a puff of smoke essentially. And they're all yelling at him, what the hell are you doing? What's the matter with you? And he's just, sitting there. Yeah, he's just drinking his milkshake. Yeah, he stopped off for a milkshake, on the way. They're yelling at him, and he just pulls, the simple line of just like, "Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Are you gonna bite?" He just doesn't care. He's great. Yeah, he's definitely a scene stealer. For the time he's around. Obviously, he has a pretty climactic scene. In a little while. But yeah, we get some more information about Keitel, and how his relationship with Joe, that they've done jobs before together. They've done other robberies and heists and whatnot. So they have a history. Madsen had just gotten out of jail. He's got a history where he was going to start like this phony job, at the docks where he's not actually working, but on paper he's working. I wish I could have a job like that. On paper I'm clocking in left and right, but I'm not actually there. But again, we're sprinkling in these kind of character bits, these sides real quick, kind of expanding on. The characters, and one of the ones we eventually get to see a lot more of is Tim Roth, and who we find out actually like really it's about an hour into the movie, but it's fairly. I always think it's going to be later than when we get it, but we it's a bit of a spoiler. Obviously, we're spoiling the movie, but he's the Rat. He's a cop, and he's like he's going to get in with these guys, and he's practicing the script of the story, that they kind of reenact.
The something story, some vehicle, where he gets some weed and stuff.
It's the thing where he gets the weed and then he goes into the bathroom and he's
there's like 4 cops, there's a dog.
And we get like kind of a mini montage of him practicing it in front of the mirror, and then practicing in front of the guy he practiced with, by the way, that he meets at the diner, the black guy. That was originally supposed to be Sam Jackson. Tarantino was already a fan of Sam Jackson and wanted to work with him from the Spike Lee movies that he had already done, things like that, and wanted to work with him. So this actually would have been their first collaboration, but it just didn't work out schedule wise. I think Jackson was filming Jurassic Park at this time, which makes sense. It's 92. So you're good. Yeah, you're good. I think he was actually filming Jurassic Park at this time, so that would have been the first collaboration of those guys, and obviously they would go on to be longtime collaborators. Pulp Fiction, getting him an Oscar nomination, going out of Jackie Brown, which is a really underrated role of Sam Jackson as Ordell. I really like him in that movie. And then, 2 of my favorites are his roles in Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight, I think he should have been nominated for that personally. Jackson's always considered him, a close friend, and giving him some of the best roles he's ever had. We get kind of this stuff with Tim Roth, practicing all these lines, and we get to see, how he kind of connected with the gang, and Keitel kind of taking him, under his wing, and really kind of ingratiating him into this culture, and Keitel almost becoming like a mentor to him, so to speak. So, Richie, I was talking about the sort of we get this like almost mentor relationship, almost this like father-son thing, weirdly, with like Keitel and Tim Roth throughout the movie, where he's like almost kind of, taking it personally that he might die, he's just like taking him under his wing. He's just like, he's going to be his little protege, almost.
It's like, it sort of, it blinds him into like, he into like, I don't know, he has that. It makes him have this bias to the point where it's like, he's not going to believe. He doesn't even want to entertain the idea that he might not be who he says he is. So it's like, no,
Right.
he's
No, he's a good kid. He's a good kid. He wouldn't do that.
a ride or die, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but the movie kind of bounces all over the place, to be fair. Like, it's not really, again, linear. It's kind of, bouncing left and right. We get a little bit more of the escape. We see Buscemi running from the cops, but he does have a briefcase, so we realize that he's actually the one who does have the diamonds, and he says he stashed them somewhere, but he shot his way kind of out of everything, shot at the cops, was able to steal a car. We eventually see how Keitel and Tim Roth, they got away. So we think that Tim Roth might have gotten shot during the heist, right? And that they got away. But that's actually not the case. Tarantino's driving the car. They're in the back. But Tarantino looks like he has some kind of head wound or something. It's not that he's like shot in the head, but he looks like he's got some kind of knock on the head from something. But yeah,
it's not clear. I don't know if when he crashed the car or
they crashed the car, and he's still kind of there, and then he eventually passes out and he just dies. So I don't know what kind of
they're like,
wounds he had.
is he dead? Is he dead? Did he die? Yeah, all right.
But yeah, Keitel again shows, and you're sort of kind of with him because it's an interesting dichotomy about how earlier in the scene in the diner, like he's the guy that sides with the waitresses, and like trying to support them, and yet in this scene he whips out his two guns and has no problem just popping two cops in their cop car, you know what I mean, just unloading and just murdering cops right there, you know what I mean, because he doesn't consider them like people, essentially. Yeah,
and it's interesting, even like I think Tim Roth undercover, he doesn't mind doing mind doing that, just like collateral damage.
Collateral damage, yeah, and but he's taken aback by it. I mean, you see him like hesitate, and he feels bad. Obviously, he doesn't want his fellow cops to die. But yeah, we see how he actually got shot. They try to carjack this lady, and as she's getting carjacked, she pulls a revolver out, and he opens the door up, and he gets shot in the gut. Yeah, right, and then they shoot her. But yeah, he gets shot in the gut, and that's how he gets initially shot. And he's kind of in shock at first, and then it doesn't really hit him, until he's in the car. Yeah, and they're driving away. But yeah, I mean, you initially think that maybe the cops shot him, maybe he caught a stray bullet from Mr. Blonde or something, but no, this like mom or whatever, this car just like shoots him with
I think it's a funny reveal because it's like you think it's a more badass than it is, and it's not. No, it's a lady, a sort of seemingly gentle middle-aged lady came prepared, came strapped, and fucking got you in the gut.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's surprising is I think this is in California. I don't know how often that would happen in California, but yeah, you do this to somebody in Florida or Texas, Richie, and most of them are going to be armed, so it's probably not a good idea. are going to have a gun in the glove box because that's America. That's America for you. But yeah, kind of getting back to the so we see a little bit of that again. We're kind of bouncing around, as the movie does. But yeah, we get to one of the more kind of crazy, infamous scenes of the movie because we come back to the warehouse and Madsen reveals that he's got a cop. He took a hostage, and that's how he was able to get out, and he's got him in the back of the car. And they bring this, he's kind of, they play it off like he's like a rookie cop, like he's pretty young, I guess, for what it is. They kind of mention that he's like first or second year cop, like he's pretty young, or whatever, but they're trying to interrogate him. They're beating him up a little bit, and then they go off to maybe go fetch the diamonds, and unfortunately for this cop, he gets left alone with Michael Madsen, and that's not a good idea because he is completely unhinged. But yeah, Richie, did you know about the scene? The scene's pretty infamous. Were you aware that this was like coming or something, or knew a little bit about it?
I knew about the scene. Yeah, it's not infected in the movie. Like I've seen it like parodied a few times. So it's like there's looking really bad. Like I don't know if the whole film's on YouTube. There's like parody short film from us. Like it's like I think Australian sort of, I don't know, their students or their but it's called like Reservoir. It's like Reservoir Dogs, but it's chicks. It's like Reservoir Cats, and yeah, they do the scene, but instead of what's the song they're using?
They're stuck in the middle with you.
Instead of Stuck in the Middle, it's Locomotion by Kylie Minogue.
Everybody's doing a family dance now.
I've known the scene for a while.
But yeah, how was the actual scene when you get into it? Because yeah, it's pretty bonkers. But yeah, just to describe it for anybody, yeah, Madsen, you already are unsettled because everybody else is gone and it's only him. At this point, Tim Roth you think he's passed out from the blood loss, which he kind of is. So he's just like off to the side. But yeah, Madsen, he goes and turns on. He's saying, he's kind of taunting the cop, here and there. He wants information. He wants to know, how much he knew, whatnot. He pulls out a razor, but then he turns on. They've been alluding to all these things about the super sounds of the 70s, with what's the something Billy, and it's Stephen Wright. I'm sure you recognize Stephen Wright's voice.
Yeah.
on the radio.
Stephen Wright, like, you can win tickets to the monster trucks.
Here, coming back to super sounds of the 70s.
I'm like, yeah, Stephen Wright.
Yeah, but he turns on. Yeah, he hits the song, and then this whole thing as well, Richie. His dance was not like choreographed or anything like that. Like Madsen didn't even know exactly what he was gonna do. He just said, "Look, when we get to the scene, I'll figure it out. We'll do a couple takes. I'll figure it out." And so all the dance moves is just him just doing his thing, to the music and whatnot. Yeah, kind of doing the little strut, just back and forth, and just kind of back and forth. And he's doing this like little strut, whatnot. Yeah, he's taunting him with the razor, and then he goes in, not for the kill, but he just takes a straight razor, just slices homeboy's ear off. Yeah, it's pretty disturbing overall because again, I think music, upbeat music like that set to like pretty sinister act can have that kind of effect on people. I can see why they walked out.
Yeah, because you're not. Yeah, it recontextualizes the song.
Well, it's like one of those things where now if you hear that song anywhere else, you're going to think about the scene. It's forever associated. It's like Singing in the Rain. It's kind of associated with the Clockwork Orange. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when he takes the ear off, he's like, "What? Sorry."
Hey, what's that? You hear that? And again, I think he improvised that as well, if I remember reading that right. That was just where he had the prop ear, and they were just like, because he was just, a lot of the scene was just kind of improv him playing around with it. But yeah, that whole like just hey, what's going on? You hear that? Yeah, playing with the ear, and I'm kind of laughing. Yeah, it's again, it's a funny line, but you feel dirty for laughing at it, Richie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah. But no, this is a great scene, and yeah, sort of I think it kind of it kind of hits me that like I think he's the most memorable part. He's again, I think his best performance in the movie because he's just so good. So yeah, like you can't get your eyes on the screen when he's doing that. It's so the charisma just flows off screen, and you're like, man, I don't condone what this guy's doing, but like he's got my attention.
But it's fun to watch, yeah. But it's kind of interesting to watch, yeah. But yeah, again, he starts to take it a little too far because he brings in a gas can, starts pouring gas all over the guy. He's telling him that he's gonna, he's gonna set him on fire, and yeah, all of a sudden he gets shot, and Tim Roth wakes up in time and pops him and kills him, kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, it's something you don't really expect because you think he may be dead at this point. You don't know. He hasn't been moving, or saying anything, so he might be dead. But no, he's able to kind of pop back up, and I like what they do. It's just a slight makeup difference, Richie, where he just looks way more pale, in his face. Like obviously he's been losing. I mean, you see the blood pile, near the end of the movie, how it's been like flowing down that ramp he's on, and it's just like this huge pool of blood. So yeah, you figure he's damn near on the brink of death at this point. But yeah, he saves the cop, and this is kind of where it's fully revealed that he's a cop, obviously, and he knows that. Yeah.
It remind me of Saw a bit. How like you think like Jigsaw's dead the whole, like it's lying on the ground the whole time, and then like at the end he's just like just walks out. So remind me of that, like in a similar sort of environment as well. So but yeah, no, this was a cool reveal. And then I mean, even like it was obviously that like it's it kind of that they confirm it later on, but like even then, like when they're shooting him, it's like you could get excused it by like, well, it's maybe he's not the rat. Maybe it's just because the psycho's going a bit too far.
Yeah, no, and that's how he tries to play it off. But yeah, he just thinks, because not long after, Joe arrives with Nice Guy Eddie, with Chris Penn, who I knew from Rush Hour before I even knew him from Reservoir Dogs. He's the guy who sells Chris Tucker the C4 at the beginning of Rush Hour, and then you see him a little bit later. He passed away, I think in the early 2000s. So unfortunately,
2006, I believe.
Yeah, because he was a cool actor. He had a lot of charisma too. I like him a lot. But yeah, they come in and Roth is trying to play off the story that no, he's unhinged and he was going to kill the cop, and then Chris Penn in just a savage move just goes, oh wait, what, this cop, bang bang bang, and then just shoots him immediately. It's pretty sad because he saved them all for naught, but it's a prelude to what's going to happen here in a few minutes. But yeah, they come in and he doesn't buy the story at all because he knows Madsen just got out of jail and he didn't rat, while he was, going in, to jail and whatnot. So he just doesn't buy it. But yeah, Joe knows the information. He's figured out that Freddie is his name, is the cop, and again, Keitel, like you said, it's just like, no, I know this kid. He's not your information's wrong. It's just like you're not right. It's not what it is. But maybe did you actually? You and I are both fans of Scream 3, right? You're a big fan of Scream 3, like I am, right? Remember when Jamie Kennedy talks about this whole thing could be Reservoir Dogs by the end of it? Did you know what that meant before you saw this movie?
No, I didn't really, but it's sort of like now I've got context to it. But yeah.
What he means is that everybody could just be dead by the end of this damn thing, and just the whole dead and buried. Which, because that's pretty much what happened. Yeah, it's just like Mexican standoff again. Tarantino is a huge fan of Sergio Leone. He loves like Good, Bad, and the Ugly for a few dollars more. So ending his first movie appropriately with a circular kind of Mexican standoff makes sense. Because he loves those like old standoffs where everybody got a drawing on each other essentially.
And then he always likes seeing this movies where majority of people meet there, and like Hateful Eight, I feel like most a lot of them die.
I think pretty much we don't actually see the deaths in the Hateful Eight of Sam Jackson and Walton Goggins, but they're both like bleeding out pretty profusely. They're going to be dead, but again, they're also in the cabin, like everybody, there's bodies everywhere, like everybody's dead at that point. So nobody makes it out alive. Even Django, to a degree, Django makes it out with his wife, but everybody else is like pretty much dead, near the end of that movie. Kill Bill obviously has a ton of the crazy 88s and whatnot. There's death all over the place, in that thing. So yeah, I mean, it's not out of step for even Pulp Fiction. John Travolta bites it, that sort of thing. So
even I mean, Hollywood, where you don't think it's that type of movie because it's just like a sort of about Hollywood, but obviously it's the backdrop is the Manson, like Sharon Tate sort of murders, but then it ends with like Mikey Madison getting burnt with a flamethrower.
Brad Pitt and killing everybody with flamethrowers and everything. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, he's known for the violence. I mean, it's here. It's not as over the top as some of the other movies would get, but it's still here. But yeah, everybody, they all have this standoff and they all end up shooting each other and killing each other. And yeah, Roth is again, kind of alive, but he gets shot again, so he's going to die. And yeah, just like the weasel as he is, like you said, Richie. But Buscemi in the background had scurried like under the rampway, that thing, and kind of hid, and he grabs the diamonds and he skirts out of there. Although if you noticed, if you had the volume turned up, I don't know how you were listening to the movie, but in the background as Keitel is kind of like cuddling Tim Roth, you can hear like sirens in the background and gunshots and them yelling, like there's obviously a standoff right outside the door that we don't see between Buscemi and the cops. So we don't exactly know what went down there. We just kind of get inklings of it.
Funnily enough, I had the captions on because the Kira here was doing like vacuuming in the background, but the caption said sirens and stuff. Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, something's going on.
Yeah, you can hear it if you turn the sound up really loud, or if you're listening on headphones or something. Yeah, there's like you can hear the cops, just being like, "Put the gun down," stand by, and then we hear some gunshots back and forth. So we don't exactly know what happened. If he got away again, if he got shot, if he got killed, what happened to the diamonds, we don't know. Some people have thrown out the thing of like it doesn't make sense, but people put fan theories out there all the time, Richie. That they have the briefcase in Pulp Fiction that it has the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs. That doesn't make any sense because they wouldn't be gold diamonds. There's a gold, hue to that. So that doesn't really make any sense. But some people also say that Buscemi got away and changed his identity, and then when you see him in Pulp Fiction as the Buddy Holly waiter, he's just undercover as he's changed his identity and he's just becoming a waiter now. And people have theorized that because he's doing the job that he spoke out against in Reservoir Dogs, that he's a waiter now who relies on tips for his income, which would be kind of ironic.
I don't. I think people look into these series too much, but I like that idea more than the first one.
I like the idea and concept. I don't know if again practically it works out, but still, I like the poetic irony that he would become a waiter just to survive, right after his speech in Reservoir Dogs doesn't make sense. And then he looks different, and he's got a whole different appearance. And he's playing and he's got an alibi. He's playing Buddy Holly, like in this movie, he's playing Mr. Pink. We don't know his real name. So I mean, it would kind of make sense to a degree. There's all kinds of little fan theories about what happened to the diamonds and what happened to all the different characters. So some of them we don't even see. We're told they're killed, or captured. We don't really know everybody. There's the one guy, the guy with the longer hair and the goatee. I forget that which one that is, but I got what is it? It's Mr. Blue, Eddie Bunker, the one guy we see very briefly. We don't get a lot of him, but I think we're just told he's killed off screen. I think, and again, Tarantino, we think he's dead. I mean, he might not be. We don't know.
Yeah, he could have just been unconscious, and others leave him alone.
Yeah, but you just leave him there and we'll run off. Even then we don't. Keitel, they look like they're dead, but who knows? Maybe they got away. We don't know. They're in pretty rough shape. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, we just kind of get everybody just gets shot and doesn't look too good. But a big heist gone wrong. So I don't know, Richie. Would the movie be improved or less effective if we actually saw the heist at the end of the movie? If we saw what actually happened, or is it better to keep it ambiguous?
I think it's better to keep it ambiguous. I think it's it leaves that intrigue there. I mean, I don't know. I don't think sometimes less is more kind of thing. And I think that's the case here. I'm sure the heist would have been cool, but I don't know if it was needed necessarily to tell the story. And I think it's just it added to it. That it was just sort of more about people's perspectives and kind of pull back and reveal as opposed to just showing you. So
No, just getting the little pieces from everybody's perspective and kind of piecing it together in your head because you get all the the puzzle pieces in your head about how everything kind of went down, in what order and whatnot, and then what happened to everybody. So it works. I think the movie also feels bigger than it kind of is, because it's about a heist, and you see the aftermath and the way it's shot. I think it feels like kind of an epic crime movie, even though you don't get that much actual action, throughout the movie. It's mostly dialogue. I mean, a good chunk of this movie is just dialogue with little flashes here and there.
But I think that, and maybe in a less capable director that might not work, but because, out of the gate, Tarantino proved that he's one of the best at writing dialogue. It kind of it flourishes. So I think it works.
So I mean that's pretty much it. It ends on kind of a would you call it a down note if all the cop killing bank robbers die? Not really. You know what I mean?
I think that was sort of. I feel like maybe deep down going in there that to think that might be a porn possibility. I don't know. That could happen, especially when there was a rat and that the cops were after him in the first place. So I don't know. It's not it's not. I don't know. It's just I wouldn't call it a sad ending. I wouldn't call it a happy ending. It's just an just an ending to their
right.
to their to their mayhem.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much most of Reservoir Dogs. But again, this was a first time watch for you. Yeah, I mean, how was it overall? Yeah, did the movie work? And I'm not gonna ask you to rank it in your Tarantino. I hate when people do that like right after they see it. You know what I mean? Oh, rank it as a great. No, you would want to rewatch it once or twice more, and then put it in your wherever you would rank your personal Tarantinos. But as far as just the other Tarantinos you've seen, how does it compare? Is it just as good? Is it something like that? But what kind of your overall thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely I would definitely need a few more rewatches to fully rank it, but it's definitely sort of up on that upper echelon of Tarantino films. It's what I want out of a Tarantino film. Great dialogue, great characters, and in the violence works when it's needed, and just and a great score, and not on that great sort of non-linear storytelling, so it really did work for me, and I'm it's much like some of his other filmography. I wish I got to it earlier, but better late than never. So. I had a lot of fun with this, and I thought it was great. So and it is something.
Well, now that when we get to 1992, which won't be far off for the latter series, now you've seen it. So
I might just rewatch it again for those.
I was gonna say that would have been one of your bigger blind spots going into the tournament if you were a part of that. So there you go. Now you've got knocked one of the bigger ones off. So there you go.
Yeah, because this will probably be on my it'll be kind of a movie I'll rewatch over time as well. So then I've watched it because it's definitely in my wheelhouse. So this is really good.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I think in my personal rankings, because I can throw this out there, I've seen Tarantino's movies multiple times. But my personal Tarantino rank, if I remember right, goes. On any given day, Hateful Eight and Django can switch between 1 and 2, kind of depending on which one I've kind of watched last. But as of right now, it's Hateful Eight, which I know I'm in the minority of loving that movie as much as I do, but I just do. I just adore that movie, and it just clicks with me. So I just love it. Hateful Eight, Django, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, then Reservoir Dogs, which is not saying it's bad. It just means I've just watched the other ones more, and I just find even more meat with those. And then it's like Inglourious Bastards, probably Death Proof, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think is kind of how my rankings go. Something like that. But everybody has their own rankings.
Yeah. He was going to do The Critic, but then that became he was obsessed with the Brad Pitt character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and now it's becoming a David Fincher movie.
That's one of the more odd pieces of news to come out in the last few weeks, that there's going to be a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood spin-off movie, but not Tarantino, but not a Tarantino movie. But yeah, it's weird. But part of I guess a script that he wrote, or at least a story that he came up with, or something. Directed by Fincher. Yeah, that's a strange thing, right? If somebody else. Yeah. I mean, it's throwing back to the 90s where Tony Scott directed True Romance, and Oliver Stone directed Natural Born Killers, and Robert Rodriguez did From Dusk Till Dawn. All of his scripts, but somebody else directing him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I don't know. So it remains to be seen what his actual last. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be his last one. He'll probably. I don't know.
Well, I tend to think he might do one more movie, but I don't think that'll be it for him. Doing things. He'll
write some more stuff.
I think he would write some more stuff. He could you never know. He could do a TV series. He's talked about wanting to do a TV show, at some point. He could always do a TV show, and technically that wouldn't be a movie. I think he wants to write more books. I think he writes novels, with some of his scripts, he turns into books, things like that. He does podcasts, he does all kinds of stuff. So, it's not like he's not going to be around, doing things, but I tend to think he might actually stick to doing one more movie, but I don't think that's going to be it for him in the movie business, if that makes sense.
I guess I'm just basing on it was recently Warfare was supposed to be Scallon's last movie for a while, but then it's already announced that he's attached to they're doing an Elden Ring movie. and he's
Yeah,
attached
and
to
he's going to be doing that. Yeah, it's weird. So
Yeah.
I think it's like we're both wrestling fans, Richie. When somebody retires from pro wrestling and doesn't really retire from pro wrestling, and then they come back later.
Yeah, they'll come back. As long as they can still walk and still go a little bit, they're not going to fully retire until they can't go anymore. So it's just what it is. Yeah, I take it with a grain of salt sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we'll see what happens with Tarantino in the future. He's always got his hands in some stuff going forward. He's always kind of doing things. But yeah, as far as that'll pretty much wrap it up as far as Reservoir Dogs. But it's interesting to see where his career kind of started here with Reservoir Dogs. Again, this guy that just was writing scripts and it's already sold a few scripts, but they didn't they took a chance on him actually directing movie, not just writing. And yeah, it paid off. And then obviously he would go on 2 years later to make Pulp Fiction, which is still to this day considered one of the great films of all time. So and right up there. So propelled him into forever superstardom. So but still I think a hell of a debut film. I think you could argue one of the better, when you look in the pantheon of directors like first movies, Richie, I mean, this would probably be like a lot of people's, at least in the top 10 kind of situation. You know what I mean? Maybe not up there as like number one. I think number one still has to go to Sidney Lumet for 12 Angry Men, probably. That might be the greatest debut film ever. The first one, it's like one of the top 5 IMDb films and considered one of the greatest movies ever made. And it's his first movie. But it's still up there as far as one of the better, it's a great debut film. He didn't start out with just a mediocre movie. He started out with a banger. So it's
So I agree. It's definitely when you're one of the best debut films. Have you done that on Tournament Fights, best debut films?
We could probably do that. Really dig into we'd have to get stuff that people at least have heard of. But yeah, it would be interesting because a lot of them wouldn't probably be the ones you think, because Christopher Nolan, it's that Knowing movie,
Following.
Following. With it's Pie for Darren Aronofsky, that black and white movie he did. Those were theatrically released. But I mean, kind of weird ones, and then there's big ones, like a 12 Angry Men or like a Reservoir Dogs, or I don't know, technically with Spielberg, his first theatrical, because he did TV movies, but his first theatrical was the Sugarland Express, right before Jaws, things like that. So it's not what you would be, but maybe Buster Scene stuff. But yeah, I mean, it would be an interesting topic. I would think 12 Angry Men would win that as far as the absolute best debut ever. Yeah. You could do it as a tier ranker. I think that could be interesting as far as ranking some of those, on the tier rank. A tier chart would be, interesting to see. I'd probably put Reservoir Dogs in an S tier, kind of behind 12 Angry Men, somewhere in there. It's up there. It's up there.
No, definitely. But that was there. Definitely a very good. You've announced yourself quite well in your first film. You're Fergus, I'm here, motherfuckers. So here you go.
Yeah, I'm here, and give me some more money to make Pulp Fiction. I'm gonna get an even bigger cast of people I'm a fan of, and really go for I'm gonna swing for the fences early and hit a grand slam early in my career, and then basically after that be given a blank check to do whatever I want the rest of my career. Do whatever passion project I want to do every 4 or 5 years. So that's what he did. But he earned the right to do that. So, but yeah. Good stuff here with Reservoir Dogs. I always enjoy going back to this one, once a year or so, and checking in with it. But that'll do it for tonight. We don't know what we're doing next week. We'll probably spin the wheel after the half bracket tomorrow night, most likely. So we'll see. Yeah, I much love to Glengarry Glen Ross and James Foley. But he's not exactly a household name, so I don't think we're gonna do a episode of that. But still, I obviously you don't want to see director Hollywood people pass away. But yeah, he's not exactly Gene Hackman, you know what I mean? So it's just I was thinking about that. I'm because I was going through this filmography. I'm she's a Glengarry, but I feel it's no disrespect for him, but if I was if one of the big name the cast,
about something than think about Glenn Gary. I don't know. It's just one.
Yeah, no. If somebody in that movie, like an Al Pacino, passed away, obviously we would do Al Pacino. Something for Al Pacino. Something like that. Yeah,
it's just one of those things where it's this kind of status where you're not like, you're not in that sort of, you're not as up there as some of the other people like we would, we would normally do. But it is, but still, no shade to James Foley. He's a good director, so yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. But we'll wrap it up there for Wheel of Movies. We'll come back in 2 weeks with another spin of the wheel, and we'll see what else we draw. So, Richie usually trusts me with the wheel spins. Luckily we spun Reservoir Dogs was the first spin. He just popped up me. I said, yeah, we can talk about that. I think it'll be all right. And he usually trusts my judgment as far as stuff he knows we can have a discussion on and we can talk about and have a good time with. So, that'll do it for tonight. But what you got going on, Richie?
Lonely Marks in here in a few minutes.
It was a slow news week, not a lot going on.
Talking about just a little bit of news, bit of backlash, and a couple of games here and there. Well, you'll find out. A couple of trivia
there you
go. Tune in. And other than that, I'll be on Tournament Fights Tier Rank and all that jazz here coming up soon. I'm in the Wrestling with Trivia tournament that JP's got going on here in a couple of weeks. So check that out. And
there you go. As far as me, you can mostly find me on the Movie Hero Network. I'll be co-host all the tournament fights and tier ranker stuff all over there. I'll be hosting solo next Friday's episode of Tournament Fights. We're doing a battles episode where people submit their favorites for a bracket, and we're doing best documentaries. So I'm going to be hosting that one solo because Jordan's not as big on documentaries, but I got a panel of people who are, including me. So that should be a lot of fun, man. There's some really good ones on there. So if you're interested in seeing more documentaries, tune in. There's some awesome ones that are going to be in that bracket. So come get some recommendations. Should be a lot of fun. I'll be on Ryan Permison's And I Quote channel tomorrow night, and we're doing our 40th anniversary watch along of Back to the Future tomorrow night. So that should be just a fun geeking out over Back to the Future, as a lot of us do. Another watch along on Saturday night, but our monthly mistake, myself and Michael Wolfman Wyndham, Mega Movie Z, the channel, will be in honor of the new Final Destination movie. We'll be doing the worst Final Destination movie, The Final Destination from 2009. So we'll be drinking along to that one. I don't think there's a single Final Destination fan, Richie, that when you ask them what's the worst one, they pretty much universally that fourth one. It's almost a perfect franchise if it wasn't for that one, unfortunately. So kind of say hopefully the new one's good though. I'm looking forward to this new one that's finally coming out. I feel like that movie's been in development for like 5 years now, and it's finally coming out. So seeing some Final Destination in theaters next week. Yeah.
No, should be good. And the trailers are good, so hopefully.
Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. So, that'll wrap it up for tonight. So head on over to the Lonely Marks Wrestling Podcast channel and join us for some wrestling talk. I will post a link in the Movie Hero Network Facebook group as well before we go live, so you can find it over there. That'll do it for tonight until we see you guys in 2 weeks for another Wheel of Movies. Thanks, Richie, as always, for joining me. I appreciate it. So for Richie Goodacre, I've been your host, Austin Pez Howell, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.